Okay, let's do this.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
All right, so thank you for Julie and Corey to ask Janet and I to come over and just talk to you guys about the guardianship monitoring program throughout the state of Idaho. My name is Emese Maynard. I am the guardianship monitor here in the 4th. I got Ada, Boise Valley, and Elmore counties. And Janet is the monitor out in the 3rd district. I don't know all of your counties because you have a lot of them.
Adams, Payette, Washington, Gem, Owyhee, and Canyon.
And so these are the counties that we monitor the guardianship cases on. I hope that you guys all know there are 7 judicial districts throughout the state of Idaho, and there is 1 monitor in each one of those districts. So if you ever need to reach out to someone in a different county or a different, part of the state, you can find all of our contact information on the Idaho Supreme Court's website, or you can just reach out to us and then we can get you in contact with the right person. So we were just gonna talk a little bit about what our program is and what is that we do for the court and for the judges and for the vulnerable population that are under guardianship in the state of Idaho. So we've been here since 2017 as a statewide program. That's when, after running a pilot for 2 years, I think in Twin Falls, we all got hired into this job. The program goals are basically to monitor the court-appointed guardianship cases, to develop a third-party review system to protect against abuse, neglect, and exploitation, to be the contact person to the public. We get a lot of phone calls. This is my situation. Do I need to be a guardian? How do I do this? Where do I go for forms? Where do I get reporting forms? Different questions. A lot of it from public members that don't really know where else to go with those questions. We are also here to improve the quantity and the quality of the annual status reports that all of the guardians are required to submit. When we started in 2017, there was no uniformity throughout the state, so there was a lot of work that we did doing case cleanup, getting after guardians who have not reported for years and years and years on their protected person. So that's been an ongoing process. That's probably something that we're never gonna stop doing.
No.
Chasing reports. We are contact for the public when they have complaint about a guardian or a conservator. They can reach out to us. We can direct them to the complaint process, and we'll talk about that in a little bit about what the complaint process is and how that works. And then we do home visits if the judges require or if we have some serious concerns. And then we also collect a lot of statistics for the Supreme Court and a lot of data, and always working on trying to improve basically the guardianship process and this world that we all kind of involved in. So one of our main job is to review the annual status report that the guardian submits. And I mean, it's pretty basic, you read it, but then you have a lot of concerns. So you follow up, we make a lot of phone calls, asking for clarifications. We have a red flag list that we usually refer to. So a couple of things on those, like we'll look for whether what are we looking for? I will look for if the protected person is getting the care that they need, that they have a social life, that they get out of the house. I will look through the section where they're supposed to let us know what their income is. I have had guardians who have not filed for benefits that the protected person is entitled to. We will follow up on questions if they would like to terminate or if they would like to get a successor guardian and they're not quite sure about what the process about that. We will look for criminal backgrounds, like recent criminal history, either the guardian, the conservator, or the protected person. In those cases, we'll let our judge know so they're aware of what's going on and they can set a hearing, kind of just, set the record straight of what's going on. What else are we looking for, Janet?
We are looking for one question that's always not answered correctly is about the health and mental treatment A lot of people think, oh, they're not going to counseling or they haven't had a mental breakdown, so we're not taking them. So a lot of my phone calls are they seeing the doctor? Are you taking them on their annual visits? Because a lot of time that answer isn't, that question isn't answered correctly. So I do a lot of follow-ups on that one. I look if the protected person has moved, why they've moved, have they moved a lot? A lot of times I try to refresh myself with the annual status report from last year and compare them to see, you know, what has happened. Are there differences? Are they just photocopying this and sending it to me and just putting a new date on it?
Yeah, so I've been
Yeah.
rejecting a lot of those because something always happens. You can't just write not applicable or, you know, same as last year. You know, let me know that the person is doing well. I want to get like an overall view when I read the report. I want to get a sense of feeling that that protected person is taken care of and that their needs are being met. So that's what we look for. If we find it like the status report looks okay, we submit a review memo just saying compliant. Those go into a file. They don't really go anywhere else. If we find something that's concerning, we mark those non-compliant and just write our concerns on that, and those get sent to the judges, and they get to decide if they want to have a hearing, if they want to send it out to the guardian ad litem, you know, whatever they decide to do with those. The other part of our job is we also monitor the conservatorship.
Yes.
Sort of, kind of, so the we are over conservatorships, but the Idaho Supreme Court has
An accounting team.
an accounting team who reviews those accountings. I think the things that they usually look for is they compare, so all the conservators have to submit an annual accounting, right? So they compare that to the inventory that's filed at the initial 90 days after appointment, and then they compare the accountings to the previous year. So they're looking for missing assets, they're looking for charges that just kind of look out of place. They're looking to see if the conservator may be using the protected person's money to their own benefits, like red flags, like are they paying for car insurance when the protected person is living in a facility maybe and they're not driving anymore? Is someone living in the home that the protected person maybe own and they're not paying rent on it? You know, just a lot of different things. They also look for professional guardian and conservator and attorney fees on those. And if they find them that they are high, then those usually get sent up to the judges.
What is the number? What's the big number?
So right now, it's kind of just an arbitrary.
I don't know, but-
So right now, the number, there is nothing in
6,000.
statute or
Yeah.
anything like that. So it's just their internal kind of number where they felt like they have to
Their accountant in a red flag goes off.
they felt like they have to draw the line somewhere. So that line is at $6,000 currently. So if anything charges over $6,000 for professional fees, those usually get sent to the judges, and they get to review that accounting. A lot of the times they will ask for additional like documentation, like invoices, itemized list, that kind of stuff. And then based on those, most of them don't go to hearing in my district, you know, they're just want to see that it's legitimate. But yeah, I don't know about your district, but.
Yeah, sometimes, and it, as you all know, it depends on the judge. All of our judges do things differently. It's interpretation of the statute and how they look at things, of what they're going to accept. And so it does really rely on that a lot, on once that judge gets that information, whether it goes to hearing or whether they might tell their secretary, get in touch with them. I want more information from this attorney as to why it was $18,000 in the last year to do this.
Yeah, sometimes they'll send it to the guardian ad litems here in my district, and then if they don't have an issue with the charges, if they get back and say, you know, this looks okay to me, then they kind of just leave it at there and move on with that. But that's what the accounting team does. They also have a review memo very similar to what we use, and they're either market compliant or non-compliant. A lot of the times they're non-compliant because the conservator is not submitting supplemental documents. Like on the form, it tells you what you need to submit. It's usually verifying bank records for accounts. So a copy of that review memo will go out to the conservator at that point, and either the clerk's office or the guardianship monitor will try to collect those, and those get filed as supplemental documents into the files, and then they review them again. So that's kind of their process.
Yep, and as long as far as the red flags go, a lot of times Steve, I was giggling a few minutes ago because Steve and I met eyes. I've called Steve quite a few times on reports that I have concerns with. As the guardian ad litem.
Reports too. I don't believe it.
He reads them. So that goes to show sometimes if a judge reads these reports, they might not catch something. Sometimes we catch something because that's what we do all the time. And so, our little spidey sense might go off to something that someone else isn't picking up. And so I know a lot of us do rely on our guardian ad litem a lot. That's one of the first steps we do is call the guardian ad litem and say, hey, I have a concern, because obviously there's only one of us in each district. We do not have assistants. We don't have secretaries. No one's filing things. No one's doing anything for us. And so we rely on us as a team to get things taken care of and to make sure that our protected people and the vulnerable population are protected by the people who claim that they are doing so.
Can you speak a little bit to
Yeah.
like, usually when I get my annual phone call of how things are going, I'm looking at your report. They then ask for the number of like maybe the care community they're in or the certified family home they're in. And then if they're able, if, my client phone numbers themselves, cell phones, then they ask for their information too. Like, what do you guys do?
So only Ada County is the only county in the state will do it. Ada County actually has a person who does home visits. And that comes from some older policies before us as state employees were here. Ada County, since the 90s, I think, had their own guardianship monitoring program, and they used to do visits every 2 years. So that's kind of still an ongoing thing, only for Ada County. So what she will do is, she'll call the guardian, well, you, and just kind of has a couple of standard questions and see how the protected person is doing. And then if the protected person has the capacity, she'll check in with them and just see, do they feel safe? Do they feel like, they're getting the care that they need? Are they kind of happy where they live? That kind of stuff. And then she'll do just it's not a very lengthy, like a 2-page home visit report that gets filed. And if there are no concerns, those, again, don't go anywhere. They just kind of sit in the file. If something is brought to her attention that causes her concern, then those are sent to the judge. And then again, the judge will decide if, oftentimes it goes to the guardian ad litem. Sometimes they'll have a hearing, kind of just figure out what is that's going on and what can we do to help. But right now, that's only Ada County. Yeah, and a lot of your cases are here in Ada County,
Yes.
so that's why you're getting, that's why you're getting all of those calls.
Get all those calls. And also back to the annual status reports, when the guardian does not have a lot of contact with with the protected person, and the person is either in a certified home or something. I read one just last week that was like NA, everything, but just had that they were in this certified family home or that they were with this agency. When I think I'm speaking for all of us, when we get ones like that, it's like, hold on, because, I actually call and say, no, you're going to have to go to these people and get these answers for me. I need to know, are they seeing the dentist? Are they going to the doctor? Are they being taken care of? Because if there's a history in their previous reports of some kind of health issue, and here I'm getting not applicable on things. Not applicable is not applicable on our reports, so.
So I have a question then. So, like on frequency, because the National Guardianship Association standard is at least once a month to visit somebody. Well, I've got somebody in Burley, I've got someone in Twin, and I'll usually try to make an all-day trip to go out there, but I'm definitely not going monthly. And a case I took over from Twin Falls, like he might have seen her maybe once a year. And then when I came in, it was a mess. Like it was a mess because he'd only been seeing her like once a year. And so I did a lot of work at first to get her kind of going again, but I mean, I might be doing quarterly visits and not monthly. And I'm like, well, I hope I don't get in trouble, but like they're in a community now.
Well, I mean, as far as we know, there is no requirement how many
Yeah,
times you're
Right.
supposed
I just
to
know
go
what I
visit.
just know what the National Guardianship standard is.
We are not reporting to the National Guardianship
So I was like, going
Association.
quarterly, so like, I'm communicating with the building they live in and, trying to do a face-to-face quarterly, so.
I saw it on some form where you're supposed to check in monthly, but I have a couple that are the same way that,
Yeah,
I mean.
I
they're
don't
just
think
doing
that's
fine,
Idaho.
living on their own. They have plenty of funds and if there's no problem,
If it's working,
it's working.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep,
that's
and
what
I,
matters.
it's our discretion, you know, how we look at that, and, you know, there are times that I've called and said, okay, you put a few times. What is your a few times, right? My a few times, and is it a week, is it a month, is it what? So sometimes we might call to get that. But we are not here to micromanage the guardianships. We are just the light tap oversight, I think is a good
Well,
way. I
we're
mean,
just
we,
here to monitor the
Yep.
case, really. So we're not case managers. A lot of us
Yeah.
have very high, numbers of cases. And it's, again, we're alone in our districts. It's nearly impossible. So yeah.
we do the best we
we do
can.
the best that we can.
As one girl departments, I have over 2,000 cases myself.
Yeah.
In your like six.
In my 6 counties.
Okay.
Yeah, there is about 2,500 cases in the fourth.
Alone.
About between 850 and 900 are of those also conservatorships. So it's, I read about 180 reports a month, so it's,
Wow.
it's a lot. And again, it's not, our role is not to be a case manager. It's,
Yes.
and anything that comes our way generally gets passed down to the judges so they can decide what they need to do with it.
Would you say there's still more family guardians? Oh, number wise than?
Mhm. Yeah, and we also monitor, we have minor guardianship cases, we have, where the protected person is developmental disabled and then the incapacitated, which is what you guys mostly deal with. So a bit more variety, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions on what we talked about so far?
No, it's all of our coordinators.
Yep,
They're either nodding or they're like, oh.
it's just
say
the
that.
coordinators, so they're.
They're like, oh, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
No, they're taking notes. We need to fix them on what they just said.
Fix what Ada County is
Are you
doing.
guys gonna talk a little bit about the national piece? And what you-
So I
I'm
just,
super impressed you guys go to.
thank you. We've only been allowed to go for like the last,
So that's 2
Three-
years.
two-
Is it 3?
no, two, yeah.
Like, yeah.
This is gonna be our third. Yeah. It would be nice, I think, if they start gearing more things for like court employees, but
Yeah, when we
Good
went
thing.
last
last year we
last year?
did that investigative one for the
Yeah.
conservatorship, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the National Guardianship Association has a conference and we attended. That's what Becky brought up. Was if we were gonna touch on that. And we did all 6, well, there were 6 of us. I don't think Dan from First District didn't make it up there. But we all went and attended. They have a new national investigator certification thingy that they sent us to. So we all passed that
That was pretty cool.
with flying colors.
I know, right?
And yes, Steve.
I have a question, I was curious, what is your communication with the judge like? Because, we lawyers have to worry about ex parte contacts and all of that. But I get the impression you guys, you work for the county and. you
State.
work-
So we
We
work
work
for
for
the
the state.
Supreme Court.
Yeah,
the
our
Supreme
employer is the
Court.
Idaho Supreme Court.
So you're really part of the judge's system.
So there is a 54 point something Idaho Court Administrative Rule
54
for
for
ex parte
54
communication where we're allowed to go and have some behind the scene conversations with the
Okay.
judges about the
I think that's
case.
great,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, but it also is stated in there, in that court rule that the judge has discretion. Most of the time when I have ex parte communication with my judge, he does let the other parties know that we had a conversation or, that this was brought to their attention or whatnot. There are a few ways that we can communicate with our judges. We do have a form that is a report to the court. So if we have a concern, whether it's a cold call that comes in, we can just pull that, put who our contact is and put what happened, and just so that the judge knows, hey, this information was brought to my attention. That's usually when I myself will get in touch with a guardian ad litem. I look to see if there's a guardian ad litem on the case. And I may reach out to the guardian. I may try to find some answers, but a lot of times it's just a, hey, informational, this is what's happening. So it's in the so it's in the file.
Well, or it can trigger a hearing sometimes
Yep.
if it's something that.
Yep,
they're
and it
concerned
can
about,
trigger
then
the
they'll
hearing.
send that out. But if things like that come like our way, when people call with complaints, we always direct them to that complaint process and use that form and file that, because that's the best way to get it to the court, I think, and to your judge's attention. It doesn't mean that because I send a note to the judge, that's gonna trigger a hearing or something like that, but the complaints are, always taken into, I mean, I think the court rule defines they have to respond to the court rules within 10 days, and
Mm-hmm.
the court will let you know that your complaint was received, and then they will let you know what the steps that they decided to take on that complaint. So I think that's the best way to go about
Yep,
that.
and we'll cover that deeper. Yes, Corey.
I have a question on guardian ad litems. In my experience, a lot of different attorneys have different ideas about how to approach their job as a guardian ad litem. And so if you have any comments or thoughts on what would be most helpful for
We
you.
are as confused as everybody else. That's my answer. And I don't know if you came
Yes.
last year before Judge Beater was retiring, they had a meeting. I don't know if they want to do that again, but that was kind of, how are we supposed to
Messy?
do this? No, it was just kind of new judges coming in with Judge Beater leaving. I think there are some maybe different expectations that it was previously. Again, they reading the statute, they interpreting things different. So it's definitely brought on some changes here at least.
So can you explain
Of
county
course.
to county, like how, like, is there any, like, can you just be somebody that's like, I'm an attorney, I wanna be a guardian ad litem attorney? Like, I know each county does things differently about like a rolling list or a.
So the only rolling list is, I think, here in Ada County. I think everybody else, when they submit the order appointing a guardian ad litem, I think the petitioner's attorney usually picks who that's gonna be and who the court visitor is gonna be,
Mhm.
except Ada County. So in Ada County, they submit the order blank, and then there's a rotating list for guardian ad litems and court visitors, and then the clerks will fill the name in those,
is
but
it-
we're the only ones who are doing it.
But is it anybody who says, I wanna be on that list?
So they have to send a letter, as far as I know, to, right now it's Judge Juries and Judge Alijani here in Ada County, and then they will instruct the clerk's office, I think, to put the name on that list.
That's what you just did.
Yeah,
You just
that's
went
how that-
through it.
I mean, I'm not really involved in that process, but that's my understanding of it. That's how it
In
works.
Blaine County, you're just Judge Hammerly or whoever
Mhm.
is on the bench would appoint whoever was available
Oh,
that,
okay.
that she thought was qualified to do the job.
Yeah, and most of the counties, they just submit the name already
Because
filled
it's
in
a
on the
small
order.
county
Yeah,
Yep. I've had some Ada County attorneys file into Canyon County and leave those blank, and the judge just denies, sends it right back. You need to give me the names. So that's.
yeah, we're the only ones doing that, and that's been going on in Ada County for, I don't know, Steve Scanlon probably knows better, a long time.
Two judges ago,
Okay.
judge before, and I'm going blank, I can see picture him.
Judge Dutcher,
He lives.
Flanagan?
Yes, Dutch,
Peter was still.
Flanagan to Dutcher. was
Okay.
Where that started.
okay, so that was quite a while ago.
Yeah, Dutcher was concerned that there was too many in the same law firm, being the petitioning attorney and the guardian ad litem, which does appear to be a conflict. And so that's why
Yes. Okay.
he instituted that in that transition, Judge Beater, who strictly enforced it.
Yes,
And I think you have to submit a resume now too, don't you?
Oh, no, you have to, I just did.
I just know that you're supposed to send a letter to the judge and request
a
that they
letter.
put you on the list. Yeah,
I
and then
figured
court,
you wanted in my experience, so.
See,
and
that-
court visitors do the same thing, I think. They'll submit something and then they'll go on that rotating list then at the clerk's office.
That explains why we get letters from court visitors and attorneys. We're like, why did they do this? We
That's how it is. That's how it is in Ada County.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
Oh,
okay, next, I was just gonna, cause there's only like 2 of you attorneys, so correct me, but a lot of you probably don't know, 3 of you, sorry. The process of kind of just what you need to do to become a guardian or a conservator for an incapacitated person. Talk about it.
sure.
So, 5 pointers.
Yeah, we got 5 points. We
Get
get
an
a,
attorney.
we get a lot of phone calls regarding this. You pick up the phone, this is Janet. Hi, I have, my mom is in the hospital. They won't let her go to a rehab place until we have a guardian conservatorship. What do I do? And so the process, I always, and I think Emese is the same, we always, you have the right to, retain an attorney, get counsel from an attorney. They always think that we have the answers and we can give them legal answers. I'm telling you now.
Or paperwork.
Or paperwork. We don't
Don't
have
have it.
adult guardianship forms whatsoever. As long as we've been here, the Supreme Court said they're not going to put adult forms as far as petitions and things like that on the court assistance website. That may change, it may not, we don't know, we're not there, that's not our pay grade to make those decisions. But these go smoother if you have an attorney who knows the process. Guardianships are a very complex law. And when you're taking the rights away from another adult, there are a lot of hoops to go through, and the purpose for the complexity is that. Because it's frightening to think that I could go file a petition and state that Emese always wears mismatched socks, and so she needs a guardian, and just have that happen, and then be able to make all of Emese's decisions for her. We like each other a lot, but I don't think she wants me making her decisions. She's a very strong-willed woman, and she would not like what I do necessarily. And so there is a process. That petition is filed with the court. Once that petition is filed, inside that petition, there can be a request for a temporary guardianship hidden in there. We have some attorneys who actually file a separate petition for a temporary appointment. So that petition is filed. Along with that, there is an order appointing a court visitor, a guardian ad litem, and a physician. By statute, there has to be a physician's letter explaining what the capacity or incapacity of the person is. The court visitor is also a court rule by through Idaho court rules of they have to either be a Juris Doctorate or have a license or
I think it's a master's.
master's in
counseling,
social work or psychology, something like that. Yeah, we just changed that rule 6 years ago or something. There is a little clause in there that states that the judge can determine and has that discretion to choose someone else who doesn't meet those, but it's rare anymore that happens. That court visitor kind of complements the guardian ad litem. The guardian ad litem is an attorney that's appointed to look out for the best interest of that person. The guardian ad litem does not represent the person's desires. So if Emese, once again using her, if she is the subject of a guardianship and she does not want this to happen, and Steve Scanlon is her guardian ad litem, he is going to say, okay, this is what my investigation shows, and I think that this might be a necessary thing for Emese to have Janet be her guardian. And Emese is going, no, we don't want that to happen, as we've already discussed. She's going to hire Corey to also appear, who is going to represent her and her desires and fight what the guardian ad litem has said and represent that to the court. Okay, so there are those possibilities, but that's the difference between a guardian ad litem and a representation council.
And I have to give Bob Aldridge credit. The duties of the guardian ad litem, the ethical duties, are to report to the court what the wishes of the protected person are, and also what you think are in
Or
the
the best
of
interest,
that person.
yes.
And particularly in dementia cases, it's 180 degrees opposite. And that gets interesting when you go to court. If you like to talk, you can put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. I always just stand on the record.
There you go. Yes,
Say anything and the person thinks I'm on their side and.
there you go.
But what's in their best?
Yeah, so the guardian ad litem does say, Emese does not want this, but I think it's necessary. And then the attorney for that person could say, we're gonna fight this. And then it just gets where it does. And so the guardian ad litem does that investigation. And the court visitor does an investigation, and they both file those reports with the court, making recommendations on whether that guardianship and conservatorship is necessary or not. Now, when it comes to conservatorships, the assets are one of the things that make the biggest difference in that on whether one is done or not. But we always, like we said, we don't give that legal counsel to people. We just let them talk with their attorney about it and make that decision and whether that conservatorship is necessary or not upon the assets of that the person has. The court will then order those people, the reports are submitted. The person who is petitioning for the guardianship has to go through a background check with the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. There's online training courses that they have to take. That certificate has to be turned in to the court, and then there is a hearing with the court. If the temporary is sought and granted, then the temporary appointments with adult cases are 90 days. That basically a lot of times just gets people in the door and they're able to see things that are going on and start sorting through the messes that sometimes we have. And if that temporary guardianship expires, then the attorney can always file to extend that, and it's court's discretion, it's the judge's discretion, whether they will extend that or not and let that go. A lot of times it has to do with background checks not coming in on time, or, you know, little things like that, waiting for a report from guardian ad litem or so on.
Yeah,
we
I was
miss
just gonna
anything?
point out something that, that I went through or did, so I had concerns about a client, and it was more on a mental health, basis, that, she was basically passively suicidal, you know, it just. So you can be the petitioner like I was.
You do not
but-
have to
But
be.
you're not, you don't have to become a guardian, which I did not. So they did find a family
Yeah.
member, which agreed, and niece agreed to become her guardian.
Yes,
And so just make
Yes,
that point.
yes.
You- Like I was a
Any
petitioner, I
interested
did the
person.
paperwork.
yep, any interested person, and age doesn't matter. We've done that a few times with a couple of the boards of community guardians that I work with. We've done that where there's been an individual and there's just been a concern where the prosecuting attorney's office has filed for that guardianship for the board, and the board gets in and they start finding things out, and then they find a family member, and that family member steps in and actually becomes that guardian conservator, and the board is released from that responsibility.
What are the rules for professional guardians? As far as training, education?
So it's, which one is it? It's 54 point something or other. So
Yeah.
Look at ICAR. Idaho Court Administrative Rules are on the Idaho Supreme Court's website, so 54 through 54.4, it covers the guardianship. So if you have 3 or more non-related wards, I think is what it is, right? Then you have to be nationally certified now, whether you're a guardian or a conservator. I think a judge can waive that certification based on their discretion if, you know, some areas just don't have professional guardians, and maybe it's just people who are trying to help the community and they're not necessarily even charging for it. So, that can be waived, and that's a fairly new, isn't that a fairly new step? Court rule?
I don't know.
2020, maybe 2021, something like that.
We just know they're there.
But it's there, it's there. So I think we're almost out of time, but we were just gonna talk about the complaint process for a few minutes. Anybody can file a complaint about a guardian or a conservator, the protected person or any concerned member of the public, if they feel that the guardian is not, you know, doing their duties and they're not doing what they're supposed to, or they feel like they're neglecting or abusing the person. A lot of those phone calls first come to our office. We tell them to use the form that was specifically developed for this purpose. You cannot file it anonymously. You have to date and sign it and have to file it with the county clerk to wherever county the court case is. And those got expedited, I think, to the judge's attention.
Right.
And they have to respond to those, is it 10 days? I think it's 10 days.
Yeah, it's within 10 days. So
Within 10
usually,
days.
yep, when the complaint is filed, then the clerk sends a letter out saying we've received the
received it.
complaint. And the judge, you'll hear what the judge has decided to do and then within 10 days, the judge has to make that decision on what they do.
And then they'll send something like, this is what the judge decided, I think.
yep.
So a lot of the times those
Whole
get
list.
sent to the guardian ad litem's, I think. And they're requested to kind of just look into it and see what's going on. A lot of them here end up in hearings in Ada County. I
Mhm.
don't have a lot of complaints in the other counties, but we do get them in Ada County.
Yeah. I have a judge in Canyon County who always sends them to me. And so as soon as there's a complaint, the process is guardianship monitor Janet Caufield. And then I call the guardian ad litem and say, you need to go check on this for me. Got a
Okay.
question?
It's the guardianship portion of it, or is the complaint with your complaint for the complaint?
It's either or. You
It's
can
either
use
or.
it for either.
There's-
So either if you feel like they're mismanaging the money, sometimes they are not paying bills for caregivers or facilities. So we've gotten complaints, I think, from those places. Sometimes it's like caregivers who are unhappy with how the guardian is handling things, or they feel like the decisions that they're making are not appropriate, or they feel like they're too restrictive of the protected person. Then a lot of the times sometimes it's neighbors, you know, because they're not quite sure what the situation is. They just feel like something is off. So it's a lot of different ways
Yeah.
that they come in.
Yeah. So, and that is usually how that goes about.
One
Steve,
more comment on who can file as petitioner, any interested party, and they can be located anywhere, even
Correct.
abroad.
correct. I've had minor guardianships where the petition's granted and they move to different countries and they live in different countries, as long as that statutory requirement of keeping up with reporting and us knowing that everyone's safe.
The
We said we
jurisdiction
just,
stays in your area.
jurisdiction stays here until it's transferred out by another state and closed by the judge.
So, I know you guys have thousands of cases, so you might have to leave, but strictly speaking, our meeting is until 1:15.
Oh, we
So
can,
if
we
you
can
have
keep
some really
going.
good gems to share with us, feel free.
I did just get a complaint that was 122 pages long.
Oh, wow.
So those,
Read every word.
those are interesting. I haven't made it through there. It's sitting there on my desk. It's sitting there on my desk. And I think it depends on your clerks. Some of my clerks is, if the complaint is filed, they email me as well as the guardian and as well as the attorneys and everyone. So we know pretty much right away if there's a complaint filed. And we do have access, of course, obviously, to get into the cases so we can follow up and try to find out what's going on and what could possibly be it. A lot of times it's just someone being over concerned about something, or sometimes we have vindictive people who are just trying to cause some drama.
Parents who have divorced and they co-guardians to developmental disabled adults, the protected person who has dementia and don't want to be under guardianship and continuously, you know,
Yeah.
just file complaints about the son,
Yeah.
daughter, whoever is the guardian. We've got some cases of those here in Ada County that just go on and on. And
Oh,
on.
yeah, yeah. And as guardianships always tend to lead to a lot of high conflict between parties, whether it's a minor guardianship and a parent is angry that someone's mom's taking their, grandma's taking their kids away from them because they're not parenting correctly or whatever. And like Emma should just mention, the developmental disability, a lot of times when those kids reach 18, if the parents are divorced, that causes a whole new round of custody battle. And I think we've seen a lot of the nasty trials that we have in 3rd District or around that. Or, cases where I had a case in one of my counties where we had eight adult children. They were trying to get guardianship over mom, and they were split straight down the middle of, hired an attorney on this side, hired an attorney on this side, and they just put on their armor and went to war. And it just does not do doesn't do anyone any good to have that kind of conflict when the parent just wants everyone to be happy, and they don't like watching their kids
Yeah.
fight and argue.
That or a lot of, I've seen these in Ada County, and you probably have them, where it's a second marriage and they both have adult children from previous relationships. It just complicates.
And
Everything.
May I add, when, in that case, I would ask you to ask the judges not to put the guardian ad litem in a mediator position, which I'm in right now on about 3 cases. That if these are really fighting, take them to a mediation, and Judge Jury actually is doing that. But it's really awkward, since I'm trying to represent the best interest of the
Right.
protected person, to have these people fighting at each other, and
Right.
puts me in a really awkward spot. But the judges said,
No, it's-
told me to do it, so I'm doing
So you gotta do
I'm
it.
doing it.
No, it's very interesting because Emese and I were pilot site people for a program that we're not sure what the Idaho Supreme Court's doing with it right now. It's totally lulled and maybe dead.
There's been a lot of changes, so.
Yep, but a few years ago, we did bring people into the state and trained a handful of elder mediators and elder caring coordinators who went through a lot of training that had a lot of extra icing for handling the high conflict in adult cases like this. And that is that case with the 8 children that I was talking about actually was one of my elder caring coordination cases. And it is a bit like a parent coordination where the parents can't just, they're so high conflict that the judge says, you are going to make decisions for the parents. That is what the elder caring coordinator does. And there are a couple in Twin Falls, and then we had a handful here that are kind of spattered around the state that actually went through the training, and the judges kind of know about them. But that could always be something you could check on and see if people actually have their elder mediator thing, because that would kind of keep you out of that.
Yeah.
But I think we've only had 3 cases in the state where the elder caring coordinator has actually been appointed. And that we will not speak of any longer. But
Oh, please do.
for the high conflict,
We will know.
if you could reach out to us, because we have the names of those people, and whether they still do it or not, that would be their ability to do it. And with the elder mediators, you do not need the court order to go to them. So you can just give them a phone call and say, hey, we're having this issue.
Yeah, and maybe people are not aware that they can do things to resolve the conflict outside of the court.
Usually.
I didn't know that, so
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And like I said, I think that they have 20 or 40 extra hours for the mediators. But then for the elder caring coordinator, it was a whole different thing. But I think just they were already on the state mediator list and just did that extra bit. So
2 judges in Ada County. How many for Canyon that oversee?
in Canyon County, I have 2. I have 2, and then Judge Tucker was doing most of them, but she is also our child protection judge, so she kind of started backing off of those. Off of the guardianship cases. So those were then, now Judge Renata Bosi has most of those, but I have 4 or 5 judges in Canyon County that that either assigned them due to disqualification or whatnot through parties. And so I have about five there, and then the outer counties usually just have the 1 judge that covers everything.
Usually come to court in their cowboy boots.
They
on the
can,
farm.
they can do that.
Are those all listed on the Supreme Court website?
The judges?
Should be, right? For the
Each
counties,
county has, I think, their own website with who their judges are. So the small counties only have 1,
Yeah.
and then we only used to have Judge Beater, and then now they split the probate calendar between the 2 of them.
Yep. If you're wondering who has jurisdiction over a case, one of the best ways to probably look for it would be to go to the repository, the iCourt portal, and put in the name of the subject or the guardian or Because that will show who the judicial officer is.
iCourt.
I-court portal, I-court.
I have the letter.
Or
Yeah.
Yep.
I call the county probate and guardianship number.
There.
Just cut right through it. Want to talk to whoever.
Or that's Emese, right? A lot of our calls as well are, people just verifying that a guardianship is in place. I had a call yesterday from a mom, who her son was 50-something and he had a TBI from years ago, and she's like, he has a child with an with an old girlfriend, and the girlfriend says that she has guardianship. I pulled up the case, it's years and years old, and it never went to a guardianship. She had a 6-month temporary guardianship issued before 2010, and she was still going around telling people she was the guardian of this guy. And, so a lot of times we get those phone calls where we're not able to, we just say yes or no. We can't say it says this person, it's just yes or no. And, so we get a lot of those too. Can you just tell me if there is something on this person? But other than that, our standard answer is you have the right to retain an attorney.
Good answer.
And yes. And there is, I do want to plug really quick, since this is the Guardianship Association and not only incapacitated, that once a quarter, Lupe Ayala and Diane Stevens and myself do a workshop on developmental disability guardianships. That's once a quarter. I think the next one it's in November. If anyone has any questions, you can email Cordy. He'll give you my email address. And it's open statewide. We have people come from the state. It starts at 6 p.m. It's on Teams. So anybody can come, just hop in. Lupe talks very quickly and covers all of the laws, and they cover all of the options. Because the Department of Health and Welfare looks at, well, we all look at guardianship as the last resort. And the Department of Health and Welfare is really looking at the supported decision-making model for the developmental disability population. And so we have that, the first hour is just going over all of that, what the evaluation committee does, what they need before the court hearing, all of those things. And then we have a half hour of just open questions and things like that. So if you ever have contact or if in your networking, if you know of people who are trying to figure out what to do with developmental disability children, because schools start telling them, when the kids are young. I have an autistic grandson, and my daughter's already being told you have to get guardianship over him. And he's a pretty high functioning little guy, and there's no reason why he should not have his rights as an adult when he reaches that. So we have that every quarter that's there, just opens options and is an educational thing. I've had judges and people from law firms and everyone have sat in, a lot of people have sat in on that.
That process is very, very different than.
Yes.
Like, an
Yes.
incapacitated person, it's very different.
Very, very
They
different.
go to health and welfare and sit, and then they interview, and you have to turn in way more stuff.
Yes.
You have to, I just took over a case, from someone who retired, and then I took it over, and it was like, we started fresh with they wanted all of this stuff.
Yep.
Like, we don't have.
You start
we
all
have
over.
60s now, we don't have anything that shows from in her 20s.
Right, that she was,
But-
that she was
but-
diagnosed before 22, yeah.
But yeah, it's a totally different process to.
And it's a
Yes.
Different section of the code.
Yep, 66404 or something like that, so. Yeah, all right, any questions? We are at 1:11. Yes, I'm sorry.
My name is Elizabeth Edwards, and I'm a daily money manager with the American Association of Daily Money Management. In fact, I'm the only one probably in Southwest Idaho, Southwest and Southeast right now. And so my question is, if I've stayed away from this work for several reasons, but I've been considering maybe just taking on one case to learn the process so I had a better understanding. So if I was to do that, am I correct in the assumption that I would become a petitioner and then maybe work with somebody like Corey?
Yeah, so you would have to find an attorney who will file the petition on your behalf. You want to be conservator for someone?
No,
Just guardian?
Just my goal is really to prevent having to go into full conservatorship and guardianship. I just feel that if people have a daily money manager before they get to that point, then maybe it'll create less tension along.
So like a financial power of attorney?
No, I don't take power of attorney. I don't get into that.
Yeah, then I don't think that would be anything to do with us, because we only could monitor court-appointed cases.
So I understand that, but because the last time I had this discussion was about a year ago, and my understanding at that time was that I would go through the online conservatorship training. And then once I completed that, then I would turn it into the courts or something.
So that is part of the requirement to be appointed a court-appointed conservator. So if that's not what you want, then
So then maybe you're talking about like, sounds like maybe you would be meeting with attorneys. So then when families come to them, they could say, hey, like before we go the conservatorship route, then why don't you talk with this person, that maybe they can help. So it sounds like more of like you would need to kind of network with attorneys before it gets to that process. They can suggest an alternative option.
That sounds like the supported decision-making thing, which is before conservatorship. Supported decision-making is what it's called. And you don't have to get a conservatorship, but you work with the family and the interested people in helping that person.
And you said it was called what?
A supported decision-making. The term. Am I wrong on any other, Corey?
There's a lot of videos and things on YouTube regarding supported decision-making. John can't remember his last name, it starts with an M. But he came here a few years ago and discussed supported decision-making. So if you go on YouTube, look up John M.
I think there's probably a million of those.
Supported decision-making. But, well, I mean, if you go to the YouTube channel supported decision-making, it's kind of easy. Mathis or something like that. But he's great with explaining what that is.
Martinez, somebody chimed in. Thank you, Kristen.
Oh, Jonathan Martinez. Thank you, Kristen. I was right with
Well,
it.
I want to thank you all so much for your presentation.
Oh, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having it.
And before you all go, our Secretary Lynn has an announcement.
If you need a CEU today, they are just, for general attendance, but, I have like 20 available printed, so just come see me, because I know you were all here the full time, so looking at it.